All right. Let's see what's doing here. All right. Let's see. Where's Phil? Phil, are you here?
Yeah, you can't see me?
I do see you now. All right. I had to turn my volume down. I had to get everything set here. I'm hearing myself through your setup. Is that better?
I guess I didn't hear anything except over my headphones.
All right. And I don't have watch on page. I don't have a chat room on this. That's funny. It is totally bouncing back on me.
Sounds fine to me.
All right, I got to close this a little bit. My natural light's a little too hot. All right. I think that's good enough. Ooh, I look like crap. All right. Are you ready, Phil?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wait. I got to put my... I'm not ready on any count here. I got to put my info in here. The other night, I put live on here to listen to this. At Nuff Said Podcast. We'll just go with that. Nuff Said. Get a quick logo on here. Yeah, I'm hearing it's bouncing right back. Is it your headphones, maybe?
I don't know. I think I have my regular setup.
Weird. Here, I'm going to turn. Maybe it's just I'm too hot. Yeah, I turned mine down a little bit, so maybe that'll help.
Okay.
All right. Boom. There we go. Mine's all distorted, my little logo, but I don't care. Good enough, right, man? Can you hear me okay? Everything sounds good?
Oh, yeah.
Good. I was editing. You have no idea. The whole marathon, and there's got to be 70 Live at the Blue Boxes that have not been posted that were not all edited. Yeah, it's crazy. And then in the middle of it, Chris just called me. He's like, "Hey, what are we going to do for the rest of the year and going into next year?" I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me! Right now, nothing. Make it all stop." So, okay, I do not have a chat room at all. I don't know if you do, but I do not. I don't even know how to get to it at this point. So I guess we just won't have a chat room. It says somebody's watching. I really wish I had a chat room. Are you able to see the chat?
No. Where can you?
Usually it's on YouTube. When we're watching it on YouTube, it pops up on the right-hand side.
Because I can go to a thing where it says comment tracker, but
No. It usually pops up immediately on the side, and it says, yeah, I'm not getting it at all. Yeah. Here, I wonder if I go to live streaming, if I find it. Stream options. It's always been there, so that's why I think it's funny that it's not there right now.
I clicked on chat. I clicked on chats. I don't know.
All right.
It popped up on the right, but I don't know if anyone's in there.
Basic info. Maybe it's in here. Quick custom advanced settings. I'm seeing if somehow I disabled it. Well, you know what? It says enable live chat. So if it's not going to show on there, then sorry everybody, we can't really chat because I'm not able to see it.
Throw it up because I think I just left a comment.
Mine just popped up.
Okay.
Did you? Did you do it on Google Hangout or did you do it on YouTube?
I think I'm on the Hangout. Well, I mean, I'm just on whatever link you sent me, but
okay, that is Google Hangout. That is a private one between you and I. That's a group chat.
Okay.
This one is one that's on YouTube. You're going to want to know this going forward when we start doing more video stuff. Let's see, get my camera set. Okay. I think I'm finally ready. Let's do it.
All right.
Welcome to the mighty Nuff Said Reading Club. Phil, I am so excited to talk about this. I'm Rob Southgate. Phil, you're...
Phil Parrish.
I thought you'd say, like, I'm Jack Wingrowski. So, Phil, this was your pick. It's a hell of a pick. What are we talking about today?
Oh, it's the classic Frank Miller Daredevil story, Daredevil Born Again from the original series. Was it 227 to 233?
I think so.
Yes.
That's what I put in the show notes. So I'm assuming that's what it is. I don't remember. I didn't.
Yes, that's it.
I read it, and yeah, it's 227 through 233. Let's see. What do we have here? Artist was David Mazzucchelli. I hope I said that name right. Our writer is Frank Miller, and it's Daredevil Born Again. I read this back when it was coming out month to month. So, everyone knows this as the graphic novel Born Again, but I was reading it. It was between February and August of '86. And I got to tell you, this was like eye-opening. I already dug Daredevil. That was like my character. Like I thought him and Spider-Man. I've said this a lot on this show. Those were my two characters. As much as I loved all of them, those were the two. Born Again cemented Daredevil. I mean, this was it. And actually, another thing that had happened, this was right about the time, I think it's maybe a year or so after they did the whole thing, the Secret Wars, where Spider-Man was gone for like 6 months from his books. And you'd get these Spider-Man books, and it's like, where's Spider-Man? And it was like, well, you know what? I can see doing that for maybe a couple of issues, but this was like excessive. So I was a little less interested in Spider-Man right at this point. And then this came out, and I'm like, oh, they need to do a Spider-Man story like this.
Yeah, I don't know if this came out. Well, I probably picked up Daredevil 2 or 3 years after this came out, so I went back. I have the issues, but I read them all in one sitting. And it's not your typical superhero story. Like I know these days you say like regular superhero stories bore you sometimes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like a crime drama more than a superhero story because it's 7 issues. I mean, if you look at it, he's only in costume in the first issue and the last issue. The rest of the time he's Matt Murdock with super senses.
Right. And you know what? When I say superhero stories kind of bore me, I can tell you specifically what it is. It's when it's the same thing over and over. It's the villain shows up, I'm going to punch my way out of this.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? I have never actually had to punch my way out of anything. And so I have a hard time relating to that aspect. Yeah, it can be fun. It's like an action movie. But every month it gets a little boring. This... Now, I said Spider-Man gone from his book. That's different than being out of costume.
Yeah.
Spider-Man gone from his book. He wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it got so you're like, okay, how much can I read about Aunt May? She's not that interesting without Spider-Man around. And then they would all look forlorn and be upset through the whole thing. And you're like, yeah, I'm reading like 7 different Spider-Man titles, and he's not been here for quite a bit. Let's get it back on. Whereas this, him out of the costume, it was telling me the story of Matt Murdock. I didn't care at all. And that's how I felt this read, too. I was so engaged in this read. I mean, not to flip the cards, but I'm going to flip the cards. I want everybody that listens to Nuff Said to read this book. If you liked the Daredevil show on Netflix, you got to read this.
Yeah, if you're any kind of Daredevil any kind of Marvel fan, but especially a Daredevil fan, this is like... You have to read this.
Yeah, it's a must read.
Yeah, the night I read this, I probably stayed up way later than I should have because I was just engrossed. It was like I was like the 4th or 5th issue in. I was like, oh, it's late. I'm like, but I have to finish it. I've read this how many times? Yeah. And I've read it how many times already, but I'm like, I have to finish this.
Well, that's just it. I've read this a bunch of times too, and it's such a great piece of work. Every time I read it, I find myself like interested in different elements of it. That really shows what art this is because it's so deep. And like, I remember the first time I read this, one of the most impactful things was him deciding that Maggie was his mother. When he hears her heartbeat and he's like, her heart jumped a little bit. she's lying. And to me, like, I remember when I read it the first time, that has stuck with me since the first reading. This reading, I was waiting for that. I was anticipating that moment again. And in fact, in my memory, it was a lot bigger. It's only a couple of panels here, but man, it's a huge moment.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like there's another moment in another book where where Matt Murdock and Peter Parker are in the same room and they're alone. And Matt Murdock basically flips the cards. Like, okay, well, I know you're Spider-Man, and this is it. I have super hearing. I can tell by your heartbeat. Spider-Man's like, what? No, hey, I'm not. And it's like two panels in some random, Web of Spider-Man book or something. And I never have forgotten that. I can picture him sitting on the couch with Peter Parker across from him and him like saying, like, come on, dude, it's cool. Like, nobody can hide from me. And it's all good. This was that kind of moment. But this time reading it, for some reason, I was really interested in Foggy's story. When Foggy's story kept coming up, I kept going like, and you know what I think it is? I think it's because of what's happened in the books now, where he's got cancer and he went out to California and all that. And like, I'm reading this and I'm kind of like, and also the way Foggy is depicted now. Then he was kind of like, he's not just doughy, he's like the doughiest of uncles that, you can't believe he's even friends with anybody. You're just like, who is this guy? Yet he gets the girl. He's a good lawyer. He's a decent person. Like, I just really kind of was into his story. Do I want a whole book of Foggy? No.
No. I mean, yeah, back then I think they played him more for like the comic relief a lot of the time. And these days they play him more like, he could give Matt a run for his money in the courtroom. Right.
And in this, he got that job offer with the better law firm. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that we saw in the Netflix series was played out here. So he is a good lawyer and he is a good person. And I think it's the fact that he wasn't being played for comic relief. Frank Miller was really like fleshing out the world a little bit deeper. And that I really got into. The first time reading it also, I thought Nuke was awesome. This time, Nuke was just a tool to propel the story. It was all about Kingpin. It was all about him tearing Matt Murdock's life to shreds. And it was the heartbreak of Karen. Holy cow.
Oh, yeah. But
I had forgotten it. I mean, I remembered that element. So when I was watching the Netflix thing, that impacted it. But man, this was brutal.
It is a heartbreak Karen story, but I also think it's kind of like, the whole love conquers all thing because, Matt forgives her for everything and that, they end up together in the end.
Yeah.
But the thing I think about this that's groundbreaking about this story is like, especially stories of that day. I mean, you could go through all this and everything would go back to normal at the end of the last issue. Everything didn't go back to normal.
No, everything was changed.
No, Kingpin knew who he was. He didn't get back his law license. It took a couple years for him to actually get back like his law license.
Right. Well, and that is the one criticism I have is that Karen did get back with him so quickly at the end of this story. I think it should have been dangling a little bit longer. Like it should have ended with he knows that she did it. He knows that she's been on heroin and she's done these movies. Like all that stuff should have come forward. But I don't think and I think he would have accepted, but it seemed like there were a couple again at the end. And I'm like, no, that was a little too quick. And I wanted to see a little interplay between her and Foggy at this point. I think that would have been, but once again, did I think that took, half a star off of this? No. To me, this is 100. That makes it a 99.5.
Yeah, and I think some of those last issues, like some time had passed. I don't know if it was like weeks or months, maybe, because like he had another job. He was working at that diner. I thought that was interesting that he used his senses.
Yeah,
this diner had no bit. Remember, Ben Urich was in that diner before, and they were doing no business. Now they were doing all kinds of business because Matt knew how to cook the food perfectly. So, right. I mean, business was through the roof. I thought that was interesting.
I thought so too. And Ben Urich in this was a good story.
Uh-huh.
And that's a character that a lot of people kind of forget about him and how important he was.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it's not that he's that important. It's that he is important. He's part of Daredevil's world.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do a lot with him here, but what they do lets you know, like, this is not some cookie cutter newsman. This is a guy who is involved. He's part of Matt Murdock's world, and that makes him important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just his integrity and everything, because, I mean, once Matt had it, like his downfall, Ben could have just easily come out and said, oh, yeah, by the way, he's Daredevil. That's why this whole thing's going on. But he didn't.
Right. Yeah. And that's another thing I like is the choice people that do know, they don't reveal the secrets, but it seems normal. It doesn't seem like that was something I always had thought was weird in Batman. I thought it was always handled kind of oddly, especially now when you look back, you're like, everybody freaking knows he's Batman at this point. And he still pretends he's not. Matt is leading this double life. There are people very close to him that have no idea. The few people he's let in this, you've got two that they focus on. One maintains his secrecy no matter what, and it's very normal. The other exposed him for some type of personal gain, and look what happened.
Yeah.
It made the stakes super high for that. I just really, to me, this is one of those books like a Watchmen. Everybody should read this. It's so good.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, even the whole Karen Page thing. Frank Miller brought her back in. I don't think she had been in the book for years, and then
she was gone. Yeah.
So that whole thing was out of left field.
Well, and I think that was what was so great when this happened. Anyone that was an older Daredevil reader at that time, not older, I was only like 16 at the time. But anyone who'd been reading Daredevil for a while or had gone back and read the old ones knew who Karen was, knew some of that backstory, and she was not part of it for a long time. So when you first saw her, I remember reading that and thinking, wait a minute, is that actually Karen Page? Why is she in South America? Why is she on heroin? What the hell happened here? And it was really, I mean, we're talking about a dramatic turn. What if they took Lois Lane out for 2 years? And then all of a sudden she pops up and she's a junkie. You'd be like, this is what?
Yeah.
And that was a strong choice. Once again, the reason I think that it happened a little too quickly to bring her back into the fold at the very end. But maybe Frank needed to do that. Maybe he knew my run is done and I got to get her back in, because if I don't, this character could be, sent off into the ozone. We don't want that.
And like I was saying before, I think it goes to that whole true love thing. Like, Matt's breaking up with his, current girlfriend in the first issue. His life goes downhill. Karen Page comes back and like they automatically boost each other back up. And it's, it's supposed to be that power of true love.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least until Kevin Smith killed her off.
So what did you think of we're not talking about that one. What did you think, not here anyway, not now anyway. What did you think of the artwork in this?
Oh, I love the artwork in this. I think it really helps set the tone for the story. I think another artist could have hurt this, but I think it really helped the story.
Yeah, it to me, I mean, forget the time period this was made in. I guess you can't. It has that really classic, like 80s Marvel look. The Mike Zeck stuff. Like he did Secret Wars, he did all that. Those great Punisher covers. They're just great covers, and the artwork in here reminds me of Mike Zeck's work. And of course it is. I mean, this guy is, I can never say his freaking name properly. Mazzucchelli is one of those guys, and it's like this classic, definite Marvel in the 80s look to it.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of iconic images, stuff that like you'll never forget him laying in that bed after his life has been turned to crap, and he's like he can't even get out of the bed, and like that image is just so strong. Kingpin fighting that room of guys, and they didn't take the time to like, we're going to show a big fight scene. They basically showed him. You saw some smack around, and then everybody's down, and he's just like, Wesley, let's move. It's like, wow. And Wesley was done really well in this too.
Yeah, but just the artwork was great. I mean, the slower times were it was good, and even just like the fight scenes like towards the end. I mean, Captain America is in the last issue or two.
Yeah, and Captain America's drawn so well, and I love how the depiction of that character. Frank Miller really has a bead on these characters. Captain America, and I think that it's this Captain America, because at the time I wasn't a big Cap fan, and I knew some of the lore and I'd read some of the books, but this put a personality behind him that I think actually is the personality that has been adopted by the MCU. Kind of the Boy Scout, that he was always the Boy Scout, but there's something about his personality here. This Captain America is the one that we would have seen in Civil War. This Captain America is the one that we saw in Winter Soldier, where it's like he has definite lines of what's good, what's wrong. He is there to clean up. He's proud of the Avengers. He's proud of his country, but he's not going to take that crap. So and what I mean is, I think where we saw this, and this is the first time I ever remember really seeing it, was the way he reacted to Nuke. And there was a couple of lines about the government, and he was like, not my government. This isn't how this works. Yeah. And I think these were seeds that were planted that going forward, other writers read these and was like, yeah, when he disagrees, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my take on it.
And you were saying about how stuff sticks in your head. Like the one line he has in there that Frank Miller wrote that always sticks in my head is when Captain America shows up with Thor and Iron Man, and he just says Captain America with a voice that could command a god and does. Yeah.
Great line. Great line. Well, once again, it's Frank Miller. Think about it. This is Frank Miller when his powers are unbelievable. He did this. It's not long after this that Dark Knight happens, which these are quintessential comic books. This put him, in the top tier of writers. And this story, even though it was just buried in a Daredevil, it wasn't like a special event. It really should have been. This should have been like a Dark Knight Returns, where maybe it got a little better treatment, was put out as something a little more special, like they do now. Back then, that was kind of a rarity.
I even had that thought last night. I'm like, if this story happened today, it would be like a big, 12-issue miniseries.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Well, is that all we have on this one, Phil?
I think so.
All right.
Just go out and read it, everyone. This is every time I think it when I'm in the mood to read Daredevil, this is like the first one that pops into my head every time. I'm like, I have to read this. Yeah.
And it's issues 227 through 333, or no, what is it?
227 to 233.
227 to 233 in Daredevil, The Man Without Fear. Absolutely read this. This is a must read. And next week we are doing a pick of mine, which was an odd pick. Although I kind of like to do that. I kind of like to dive into things, try them out. And I suggested to Phil, and you said you want to do it. Now, this is not a complete story, but we're doing the first 5 issues of Venom Space Knight. This is one that I didn't know anything about, so I can't wait to talk about it. Can't wait to dive into it. That's it. Phil, give your social media.
I'm on Twitter at NightwingPDP. You can always email me, nightwingpdp at gmail.com. I'm all in the Marvel, DC, so let's get a conversation going. And I have, a bunch of podcasts on the Southgate Media Group, Before the Bat, Legends of DC. I'm on Nuff Said, of course. So please check all those out.
Yeah, and you've got your blogs and everything. So check it all out. It's all awesome. And I'm at R Southgate or at, there it is, Nuff Said Podcast. You can find the Nuff Said stuff. And follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Join our Facebook group. Get us on Pinterest. We have a really cool board on there. Just look for Southgate Media Group or type in Nuff Said Podcast. It should pop up. If there's a social media platform, we're probably on there, and things are growing. So definitely get involved, get in conversation with us. We want more interaction, and we're trying to get to the point that, like on Nuff said, we can actually take callers and if you, as a viewer or listener of this show, although I think these are just viewers on here, if you have a suggestion for a run that you want us to talk about,
yes,
tweet us, email us, southgatemediagroup@gmail.com. It goes right to me. I'll share it with Phil. And yeah, man, let us know. We'd love it. We'd love it. I don't want to tell you which one I'm reading right now because I got another one already in the hopper, but you get to pick after Venom Space Knight. So that's it. Thank you, Phil. Thank you for listening, everybody. Enough said.
Enough said.